forgot that webinars are a bit disconcerting because you don't get to see everyone. But really warm welcome to everyone. Hopefully, people are just getting settled in. I'll just give another minute or so just in case there's anyone still waiting to join. Great, thank you for all the highs. That's nice. That makes me feel like there's people there. Oh, I'm from Lima, Peru. Amazing. Um, okay, I think we will get started. If yeah, unless just double check the chat. Great. New Jersey, yes. Really, really, really welcome to everyone. So hello, my name's Sarah Lavender and I am a clinical psychologist. And I work at the National and Specialist Child and Adolescent Mental Health Team, based at the Maudsley Hospital, which is specialist in obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, and related disorders. And I guess it's just helpful to acknowledge that most of my work, no, nearly all of my work is with young people, so people under the age of 18. So a lot of what I'm talking about that's coming from that experience, although a lot of what I'm talking about is very relevant for adults as well. So but I just wanted to let people know that. So yeah, I'm here today to think about what does good cognitive behavioral therapy for BDD look like? Yeah, what are some of the key components of that we know from research is really important for supporting people with body dysmorphic disorder. So, as I say, lovely to have you all here, and I've got some slides to get through, but I plan to leave some time at the end for questions. So I think we use the chat function to do that. So feel free to put questions in as we go, and I can try and look back to those. Or alternatively, you can sort of save them to the end, and I'll make sure we leave some time. So I wanted to start actually with a video that was produced by the BDD Foundation, just of some young people sharing their experiences of treatment, which I think is a really nice way to start, and sort of yeah, it's really helpful to bring that live. So just bear with me slightly on the tech. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and then reshare the video. And hopefully all the sound and everything will be working for me. Okay.
When I got diagnosed, I didn't think that it was right, because as somebody with body dysmorphia, you just think you're ugly. You don't think that there's anything wrong apart from your physical appearance.
After I was diagnosed, we started to pick up on more symptoms of BDD and realised that it was BDD, and that really helped to take the next steps into a therapy.
I had CBT, cognitive behaviour therapy, and exposure therapy. It just involved a lot of exposure tasks.
To have lost Sarah, is that the case for others? If you wouldn't mind just popping in the chat. Bear with me one moment. Oh, she's back.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I do not know what happened. It just sort of shut down. I'm so sorry about that. I will go back and try to, yeah, reshare.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was like. Sorry to interrupt, Sarah. I'm not sure what it was like for
Yeah.
others, but the video was like slightly kind of like sort of jolting around a little bit for me. I don't know if that was the case for
Oh,
others, but
really?
perhaps we try one more time and see how we go.
Yeah, okay. Can you let me know in the chat if that's
Yeah,
happening?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All
Thanks,
right.
Sarah. We'll
Thank
try
you.
again.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
tasks and opening up to therapist Benny I had, and just letting her into what is going on in your head and how you think this has happened, and just exposing you to your fears to gradually allow you to get over them.
It didn't feel like I was being judged, and I think Angie was really helpful, and she didn't make me uncomfortable, and I was always able to speak.
I didn't have much hope at first, but the more sessions I went to, the easier it got. And
Hello, I'm so sorry. I think there's something where it's not liking the video. So I think I will sorry about that, everyone. I will make sure we pop a link to the video in the chat so that everyone can have a look at that afterwards, hopefully. So sorry about that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah.
Um, okay, so yeah, I guess it was helpful because a lot of it was kind of young people talking about their experiences, but I will be covering some of that as well. So this is just some of the things that people have said about treatment for BDD. So making sure you have someone to support you doing tasks, and we'll be talking a bit more about the kind of tasks that we do. Taking each step at a time, make sure you follow through with exposure tasks. They are the most helpful thing, in my opinion. I wish I'd known that everything would be done at a pace I was comfortable with, that I wouldn't be pushed into doing things I wasn't ready for. And I think that can be a fear that people have when coming to treatment as well, that things might be done very quickly and kind of there'll be lots of pressure, but that's a really important part of the CBT, as things are done at your pace and what feels manageable. And the last one was, even though it can feel like an uphill battle, you should never give up and should always be open to offers of help. Great. Okay. So yes, I will send that link in the chat. My technological skills can't quite cope with sending it right now, but I'll make sure that's there. Okay. So I guess as a starting point, I don't know if many people will know, but what we use here in the UK to kind of guide what treatment is offered for different health conditions is NICE guideline. So that's the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. And the guidelines sort of recommend what should be offered for someone who is experiencing a particular difficulty. So we have NICE guidance for obsessive compulsive disorder and body dysmorphic disorder. They're published in 2005, and there's a real recognition that there's a need for those to be kind of reviewed and updated. But in saying that, the kind of the research still backs what is said in those, but there probably is room for that to be updated. But what is recommended in the NICE guidance for people with body dysmorphic disorder is cognitive behavior therapy, and an important part of that was mentioned in some of those quotes is including response prevention. So I'll come on, some people might have experience of that, and I'll come on to explain a bit more about what that means. And the other part that is important, and there's evidence that can help, is medication using selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So with these things, this is kind of, there's evidence that there's improvement in BDD symptoms with this, improvement in mood as well with the combination of CBT and medication. Of course, things don't always fit for everyone, but I guess this is from lots of kind of research trials that has shown that this these two interventions have the most evidence and the most helpful. So I'm not a psychiatrist, so I won't be talking a lot about the medication. I think my colleague Dr. Clark has done a previous webinar on medication, so you can always access that as well if you want to know a bit more about that. So I'm going to be really focusing on the cognitive behaviour therapy and explaining a bit more about what that involves. So as a kind of standard package, usually what that involves is 16 to 22 weekly sessions, which are normally an hour to an hour and a half each. Depending on the person, I think, yeah, it can be quite helpful to have that kind of really a regular time each week. And what we know is really important is for that to be regular. So not that you have, that it is obviously where possible each week, rather than having really big long gaps between sessions, because the momentum is quite important. And so yeah, if it is about committing to a bit of a block of therapy. If anyone has experience of CBT, they're probably aware that homework, although I don't always love calling it homework, but having tasks to do between sessions is a really important part of CBT. There's only sort of so much you do in that hour a week. It's also about what you do in between the sessions, which is super important, but that's always something that's worked out with your therapist. And just a little bit about kind of treatment for young people. So it's always sort of tailored to a specific age, sort of someone's age and ability, and sort of developmentally where someone is at. And I guess I should have said, so the cognitive, there's the cognitive part of CBT, which is much more about kind of thinking, and the behavioral part, which is more about what you do. And with young people, we tend to take more of a behavioral approach, because that's where the evidence lies, that's more helpful. But I can explain a bit more about that. And also we think with young people about parental involvement in sessions. But I know in adults it might not be, it can be parental involvement, but it might also be thinking about other partners or loved ones, and if it's helpful for them to also be involved in some way in sessions. But obviously that's all with the individual's kind of choice about that. So initial sessions are really focused on learning about body dysmorphic disorder and understanding more about it, and also thinking about anxiety, because we know anxiety plays quite a role in BDD. So really understanding that and understanding how that works for an individual. We also then think about what we call in psychology formulation, which is a kind of, it's basically just trying to understand why has this problem developed for you, and why is it important, and what is keeping the problem going. So often in the formulation phase, we'll be thinking about why have these concerns developed. Often can be thinking with people about difficult experiences or just past experiences, or kind of often thinking about sort of societal narratives about appearance or family narratives as well. Why does it matter? What's the kind of meaning of these concerns for you? And as I said, most importantly, what is keeping the problem going at the moment. And it's really important to establish goals and motivation for treatment as well, because as you might have heard a little bit in the video or from people's quotes, doing kind of exposure work can be quite hard and confronting. So it's really important to have those goals of kind of remembering why you're doing that, why you're putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. And then we go on to make a hierarchy. So again, I'll talk a bit more about this, but that's a list of the different kind of BDD behaviours that someone might be engaging with, that might be getting in the way of life, and keeping their worries going. So a hierarchy is used because it's about kind of grading how difficult different things would be to not be doing. So a hierarchy helps us make sure that you're making changes in a gradual way that feels manageable as well. So the first phase, that kind of part where you're learning about BDD, we often call it psychoeducation. So there's sort of 4 kind of main things that we focus on. So basic facts about BDD, thinking about body image, self-focused attention, and perception. So I'll talk about all of those in a bit more detail. Oh, don't know. Yeah, so in the kind of approach we use, we are working with young people, and I think for everyone actually, and a quiz or making things a bit more fun can work well. So we think about different myths and facts that people might think about BDD, because often it really varies. Some people will come with lots of knowledge and lots of understanding about BDD, but some people might not know so much, and particularly it might be parents or loved ones don't know so much. So that's just an important kind of establishing what we know about BDD. We're often signposting people to the BDD Foundation as well for all the amazing resources that they have. And show, I don't know if anyone's seen this video, Because I'm Ugly, which is their experiences. I think it's really helpful just to kind of set the scene. And also often it's kind of less known about BDD, so people often haven't met anyone else who might be experiencing this. So just seeing a video of someone describing an experience that you can relate to can be really helpful. And I think an important part of this is just sort of understanding that difference between BDD and body dissatisfaction, because we know that can be a common kind of misconception, that sort of people making comments like, oh, everyone's worried about how they look, but yeah, really making sure we're understanding that difference of how distressing that is for someone, and how much of their time it's taking up, and how much it's interfering with everyday life. But I'm really sorry, I can see the chat going, but I just don't think I can quite coordinate my self to read it. So I'm going to look at them and make a bit of time at the end to look, so I make sure I'm addressing those. So sorry about that. My multitasking is not brilliant. So we then also move on to thinking about a really important distinction around body image and physical appearance, because a lot of people will come to treatment feeling that there is a kind of a problem with their physical appearance that needs to be fixed or needs to be hidden, and we're always really trying to make sure that we're establishing early that distinction between physical appearance and body image, and how BDD is a difficulty of your body image, which is how you feel about your appearance, as opposed to it being that there's an actual sort of flaw or problem with physical appearance, which can be a hard conversation, and can be challenging when people have hopes about there being a problem with something about the way they look. But yeah, we're really working on how someone feels about their appearance rather than trying to do anything to change it in any way. We also talk a bit about perception as well. I don't know if anyone remembers this big debate that happened about a whether this dress was blue and black or whether it was white or gold, and it caused a lot of real kind of strong feelings, I think, of people being so sure that the color they saw was right. And I guess the idea is we just want to raise that that issue about perception and how different people can perceive things in different ways, and that is so shaped by our experiences, how we might feel about certain things, and it's not always based on exactly kind of what we're seeing as well. So it could be yeah, an interesting reminder of this, that when this happened, but also an important message of, yeah, we don't all perceive things in the same way, and we bring so much to the way that we view things. And we also think about self-focused attention. So again, I don't know if anyone will have seen this video where it asks you to count how many passes the team in white make. So you spend a lot of time, you're really focused on the white team, checking how many passes they make. And actually in the middle of the video, a moonwalking bear goes through. But it's amazing, if you're really focused on counting the number of passes that the white team make, it's so easy to completely miss that there's a moonwalking bear. And yeah, I've done it with multiple people, and nearly always people don't spot it. And I guess the idea there is just how when we're really focused on something in particular, then we miss out on other important information or things that are going on. And how when we're really paying a lot of attention, really focused on a particular kind of body part, particular aspect of our own appearance, it can increase our kind of perception of a flaw in that particular area. And also has this impact of having that spotlight effect, of assuming other people are focused on that same thing. So yeah, this is all about just kind of learning about some of the processes that can happen, kind of bringing awareness to it. I think it's not to sort of say you need to stop doing this all, because that's really hard, and it is part of just being a human being, but it's being aware of these processes, I think, that's really helpful, and is something that then you can be trying to challenge when you're tackling some of the difficult behaviors. Another part is that sometimes, which don't always, but it can be a really helpful exercise, is doing a kind of self-portrait. And this is just some examples of some of the self-portraits we've young people have done. And I think it can just be a helpful process of kind of seeing it, kind of really experiencing how people might see themselves, and people being able to portray that and illustrate that through an image. So many of the young people we work with have a real kind of eye for detail, which can often mean they have a real skill in art as well, which you can probably see in some of these pictures. So yeah. And then we really think about kind of anxiety as well, and really understanding the symptoms of anxiety, because we know that appearance can be very related to kind of being part of a social group and feeling kind of a sense of belonging. And as evolutionarily as human beings, it's really important for us to be part of a social group, and sort of social exclusion very much in sort of back in the day was a real threat to not be kind of socially included. So although kind of times have changed and things are different, I think it's important to acknowledge that anxiety related to appearance is a kind of, your body's responding like that's a real life-threatening threat in those situations. So it's really important to kind of normalize that and also be able to understand those bodily sensations that you experience when anxious. So talking about that fight or flight response, so your body responding as if it is in real life danger, and all these physical sensations we experience in our body being really helpful if we were in a life-threatening situation, and preparing us for that fight or flight response. So beating our heart's beating faster to get the blood around our bodies and getting kind of hot and sweaty because we're ready for that fight or flight. But how, that being triggered when it's not always necessary, and how we need to kind of face those situations, and learn that actually our body doesn't need to respond with that fight or flight response, and doesn't need to respond with that real threat response. So we talk a lot about anxiety habituation, which in short is really simple. The kind of concept that our anxiety, if we face something that makes us feel anxious or uncomfortable, our anxiety will rise. But what will happen if we stay in that situation is that our anxiety will start to come down. And the more times we face that same thing that makes us feel anxious, the easier it gets each time. Because what can happen is there might be something that makes us feel anxious and we think, oh, I'll just avoid that. But then we stop that process of anxiety habituation. So I think there's lots of really good examples that you can think of where people are likely to have experienced this. So first day at a new job, or first day going to a new club or place. I get it, just sort of first time I have to drive somewhere, I know my anxiety is going to be really high. But once I've done that a few times, I know it gets easier and easier. So it's really that learning that anxiety does come down over time all by itself when you face and stay in a scary situation. And what we want to do is not be kind of relying on any other sort of behaviors to bring anxiety down, but instead just being able to sit with them. And I'm sure people have experienced this. The more we do something, the less anxiety provoking it becomes, and the quicker we're able to, our anxiety comes down. I always acknowledge that these graphs always make it look very simple and easy, and I know it's not quite simple as this, but I think it's important that that's the principle, that the more we do something that makes us feel anxious and uncomfortable, the easier it gets. So this is just a bit of an example of, it's formulation. So we think of, this might be familiar to people, maybe not, but this is the kind of BDD cycle it's important to understand. So I'll have a negative thought of, my forehead is too big, everyone will be disgusted and won't talk to me. And as we said, that meaning is really important. And I took this to mean that I'll be alone forever. That leading to feelings of anxiety, shame, disgust, anger, hopelessness. And then that leading to these behaviors of avoiding, correcting or hiding appearance, checking, maybe comparing to other people or ruminating, and being focused on how I look. And important elements that have come before that, as I was talking about, kind of understanding people's experiences is really important, because often people have kind of negative appearances where people may have said things or been difficult. So important part of this topic is important part of the formulation as well. So life experiences or risk factors might be family history of anxiety, if lots of your family struggle more with anxiety, Negative comments or teasing. Often people might have been called specific names, or yeah, just had some difficult experiences in that way. And that leading to believe that appearance is really important for happiness and being accepted by others. Because, and beliefs maybe like, because of how I look, nobody will want to be with me and I'll be alone forever. And often what will happen before a negative thought is there'll be some sort of trigger. So seeing myself in the mirror, someone talking to me, or seeing pictures of models maybe, or social media and things. So, and then that triggering that cycle that people can then get stuck in. So it's really just sort of drawing that out, how this will look different for different people, but just trying to draw out what are those kind of factors for someone, and what's kind of what are some of those behaviors that they're doing, which although at the time can feel that they're reducing anxiety, will be kind of reinforcing that negative thought and those beliefs. Hoping this is all making sense. So as I said, we then go on to build a hierarchy of those different BDD behaviors that someone might be doing. So things like avoiding certain places, or comparing, or needing to check, or whatever it is, and sort of grade those in terms of how difficult those things might be to face. So it's really important that we do things in a gradual way, as I said. And then the really important kind of key component, the bit that I think most people will tell us if they have found most helpful, although it is really hard, is exposure and response prevention. So the exposure part involves facing the fear. So whatever that might be, whether it's going to a certain place, or not wearing a certain item of clothing, or wearing a certain item of clothing, or not using something to cover up, or yeah, so facing the fear with whatever the concern is, visible if possible. And then the response prevention is then fighting that urge for any kind of safety behavior, like mirror checking or camouflage, or grooming a lot. So yeah, so a simple example would be going to a shop without wearing a hat, if that is something that someone has been doing to kind of cover their appearance. I can give some, so yeah, the going to the shop would be the exposure, and the without the hat is the response prevention. So here's just some examples of quite common exposure tasks that we might do. So going out in public with no makeup, I think that's one that's kind of when you're really sort of pushing it. That's something you can grade a lot. It might be about not wearing certain parts of makeup, or yeah, doing that more gradually in terms of reducing that. Leaving the house without checking in the mirror, going to the shop without wearing a hat, using different shampoo, different makeup, different skincare products. There can be lots of different things might be about changing, or making eye contact with someone at the bus stop, maybe interacting with someone in a shop, or ordering a coffee if that's something that's been difficult. So it's all about facing things that someone might have been avoiding. So why do we do exposures? I think I've covered some of this. So it's about learning that anxiety does reduce over time, and with repeated practice. So with repeated practice, it gets easier and easier. It can also help kind of gather evidence and challenge beliefs. So often people might have very kind of specific beliefs about what they think might happen if they are to do an exposure task, or they are to order a coffee, or might have beliefs that people will comment on their appearance, or that certain things might happen. So they can be really important to kind of test out what does happen when I put myself in these situations. So often, people might have beliefs like people will treat me poorly, no one will want to be near me, and I won't be able to cope. So a lot of it is about testing that out and what does happen when we try and do things a bit differently. And also a really important part of exposure is building kind of self-esteem and developing areas of life outside of appearance. So often we know BDD can really kind of get people stuck and trapped and not being able to do lots of the things that are important to them. So it's also a way of helping build up back up life. Like today I did an exposure task with someone which was around going on the bus, and actually it was much easier than they were expecting, and that's now meant that they can go and access a particular club that they really want to go to because they can get the bus there. So it's about broadening out life as well, which is really important. So yeah, this is just recapping a little bit. So you build your hierarchy of BDD safety behaviours, and that may include sort of certain situations or places that you might also be avoiding. Designing your task, your exposure task, making it specific and manageable. Sometimes people might go, right, I'm going to not do anything, but we want to make sure it's manageable and specific. And then monitoring what does happen to your anxiety over time. Also, what happens to those beliefs? Just do some of those things happen or not? And then it's important to be reflecting. What have you learned from what has been learned from what you've done? So some just key elements for CBT which have been identified as really important is live practice with your therapist in after the psychoeducation part in nearly every session is important. There might be some reasons you do different things on certain times, but it's really important that you be doing that with your therapist, so they can help with the experience and seeing kind of what happens. So it can be tempting to sort of say, okay, I'll go away and do that, but it's really what we found is that it's doing it together is a really important element. Making sure, this is something people easily forget, but making sure you're kind of rewarding yourself for managing to do something that's really challenging, however small, even if it's just like a treat, treating yourself to a coffee or to something that you know is that gives you motivation, but also is rewarding the hard work, because it's not easy to do these things. Practicing regularly, as I said, is really important, and that's why we talk a lot about practicing in between sessions, because that's the way we see these things get easier, is the more you do them. So it kind of it's not that super effective to say, okay, I've done it once, that's fine, I don't need to do it again, because probably if you leave it another sort of 3 weeks and you try and do it again, it's probably going to be, you're not going to see that impact of that getting easier so quickly. And yeah, starting small and breaking it down, it's really important to have success with these tasks. So really with your therapist thinking about, how can I break this down? That's going to be too overwhelming, I need to break it down, and therapists will always have ideas about how to do that. And planning that collaborative and being really open and honest with what you feel is going to be achievable. Really important as well, and it might be part of what you're doing, making it manageable, really trying to resist all safety behaviors that you might do. So not sort of saying, okay, I'll do it, but instead I'll wear the hat, or I'll can only do it if I wear this particular thing, or if I cover here, or I'll only go in a certain area. So to make it most effective, it's about resisting any of those behaviors. Really sitting with that anxiety. Something that can be really helpful, like I said, in BDD, we know self-focused attention can be something that people can get quite trapped in. So often when we're doing exposure tasks, we're thinking about how you can practice kind of focusing more externally around what's going on around you, rather than being focused on what's happening to yourself. That can keep keep that anxiety going. And always, yeah, kind of reviewing, learning frequently, and really like therapists and the individual really communicating about what's working and what's not, and just being really honest about that, I think is really important, so you can make sure it's as effective as possible. Another part which I talked about is behavioural experiments. So we've been talking about exposure with response prevention, which for very much about sitting with your anxiety and allowing it to come down without doing anything to bring that down, like safety behaviours or avoiding things. But we can also, and they can often look a bit similar, be, as I said, sort of testing out beliefs, or if people have specific predictions about what might happen. Then behavioural experiments are a bit more focused on that, as opposed to just sitting with your anxiety. They're more about testing out your beliefs or predictions. So they might take the form of kind of predictions about how people will respond to you, about what will happen if you don't use normal safety strategies, or predictions about how you'll cope without kind of normal what people have been using, maybe to camouflage their appearance. Mirror retraining. I saw there's going to be a full webinar on this, so it would be good to tune in, but that's just another element that can be really helpful in CBT, because it can be really varied, sort of people's use of mirrors. It can be that people are using mirrors a lot to check their appearance, and maybe using lots of different types of mirrors and magnifying, or in lots of different lightings and things, or it might be people are just totally avoiding mirrors. So either way, mirror retraining is about kind of re-establishing a more kind of helpful way of using mirrors. So often first about thinking about, how am I using mirrors at the moment, and often what we see is that people might be really focused on what they perceive as a flaw, rather than being able to take in more of the whole image that you see in the mirror in a really neutral and non-judgmental way. But that can take a practice to when you've been looking in the mirror a lot and always been used to just going straight into that sort of self-critical mode. It can take some training to get back to being able to look in the mirror in a more neutral way. So mirror retraining is about doing that with your therapist, with their support. And then the last sort of part of sessions that we know is really important is, after you've done lots of the hard exposure with response prevention work, is relapse prevention. So that's about kind of reviewing your progress, reviewing if you've worked towards those goals and things that you wanted to work towards, reviewing how treatment's gone, what are some of those things that you've learned, and what do you want to make sure you keep working on, because it's often that you'll have the sessions, but then there'll still be things that you keep working on beyond the sessions as well. And part of that is just kind of planning for the future, thinking, are there certain things that are coming up that are going to be particularly stressful, where you think there might be a bit of a setback, or things are going to be more difficult, and kind of really planning for that, and how you're going to respond, thinking ahead, and then how will you deal with things if there is a setback. And I often see sometimes people can be really sort of upset, understandably, or worried if there is a bit of a relapse or things slip back. But I see it really as a good opportunity to kind of test out what you've learned, and actually, it can be quite helpful to have that happen and be able to get back on track. And that's an important part of the process of recovery as well. But it can be really helpful to sort of think ahead about how you will deal with that, really. And often that's thinking about who's around you, who can help. Because I think I saw that in the chat, someone said about how, the shame can make it really hard to talk about, and easy to sort of keep secrets, and then keep these things a secret, and then it building again. As I said, just some additional things that we can sometimes find helpful, most of which I think is mentioned. So thinking about use of mirrors and photos are another thing that can be really challenging those negative thoughts about your appearance. attention training, so doing some training to kind of shift that attention from being self-focused to more outwardly focused. Building self-compassion is something we're doing a lot more in our work, because so often people can be really uncompassionate towards themselves and find that really difficult. So that's something we often build in. And also, as I think I mentioned, that idea of kind of reclaiming life from BDD, and really as kind of BDD is taking up less time and in the past. Can everyone still hear me okay?
Can hear you, Sarah. You cut out for a very short moment.
Okay,
Don't know if
sorry.
that was the case for others, but you did come back quite soon.
Okay.
So you're all good. Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks, Jem. So yeah, this is just a little bit about the care pathway. Sorry, this slide actually looks quite busy, but I guess a really important thing is about how you can access treatment. So yeah, the first sort of protocol, this is obviously UK based. I know there's some people who this probably isn't relevant for, but so contacting your GP and asking to be referred to a local community mental health team or child and adolescent mental health team, where you should be offered a BDD assessment. So there is also in adult services, the Centre for Anxiety Disorders and Trauma, which do also offer specialist BDD treatment. So they're the kind of adult equivalent of our team, who your CMH team may be able to refer you to. There's also increasing access to psychological services, psychological therapy services, which you can, it really varies sort of on your locality, I'm afraid, so I can't give kind of concrete, but you can always self-refer to that as well. They tend to offer shorter courses of CBT. So yeah, then there's assessments and screening, and if BDD is confirmed, then normally what happens is an intervention or a treatment might be offered locally to you. If you're in in terms of with young people, and my service, you've been offered a service locally, you can be referred straight to our team, but you do need to be open to a child and adolescent mental health team. They can refer on to us. And yeah, if someone is referred to our team, that's just a little bit about what we offer. So we offer an assessment, and then yeah, we have a 20 session package that we offer people of CBT. We have a slightly extended package that we offer for people who are neurodiverse, because sometimes things can we've just noticed that having more sessions can be helpful in that population. And then we also offer in our team a follow-up year where people are seen at 4 different time points, just because we know the nature of things. People might still have things they're working on, and it's also important to kind of still have a therapist there to kind of help deal with setbacks and things. So yeah, this is just a list of the kind of national and specialist BDD services. So yeah, I've mentioned our team and CADAT. There's also the Anxiety Disorders Residential Unit, which is a residential unit where you're there sort of Monday to Friday, which is an option that's at the Bethlehem. There's also an inpatient unit at the Priory Hospital and Springfield Hospital. And there's also highly specialist services that are based in Hertfordshire as well. So that's just a bit more information on those. And yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I really wanted to leave a bit more time for questions, but sorry for my technical issues to start with. But I will just have a look at the
Thank you,
chat.
Sarah. I was just wondering if it's helpful for me to read them out for you, or are you?
Oh yeah, that would be great if you don't mind.
Yeah. No, no worries. And thank you so much. That was wonderful. It's so much really valuable information there. Um, so the first question is from someone called Andrea asking, my son's therapist, who he has been seeing for 6/8 weeks, has focused on getting him out in the world and other exposures, but I know she has not approached the specific BDD thoughts yet. She is experienced with BDD. What is your view on doing it that way around?
Okay, so just so for the focus being on the getting out in the world and then thinking a bit more about the thoughts. I think if that is working for someone, that can be a really helpful way round, because I guess then you're kind of building some kind of evidence and things about about what does happen when I'm out in the world a bit more. Often we do it the other way around, because it's helpful to have that understanding first and then be going out into the world. And sometimes without having that understanding and challenging first, people might struggle to even get to that point of going out. So I think that's brilliant if they are able um to do it that way. But I guess it would be important that then those thoughts aren't kind of left and not sort of challenged. I think it's important to do both.
Thank you. The next question asks, I've recently come to understand that a core part for me was the searching for the right feeling ritual. And as I understand, that is a sneaky ritual. Are there lots of sneaky rituals in BDD according to your experience? With sneaky, I mean hidden or not so obvious.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We often call it that just right feeling, and often people are having to do things over and over, in order to get that sort of just right feeling. So yeah, that is something people who have experience, often we're looking out for that as well. Like as you say, I like that sort of those sneaky behaviors that are a bit harder to spot. And yeah, I think there can be lots of things, and so often things people are doing kind of not even consciously, maybe just kind of they'll go out and do an exposure, and you think that's great, but maybe have spent the whole time looking down, not making any eye contact, or might have certain kind of ways of camouflaging and things that is harder to spot. And for the person as well, it can be kind of, if you've been doing something for a really long time, you might not even recognize it as being a safety behavior. But it's really important to be looking out for any of those things that I'm doing to try and reduce that anxiety or hide my appearance.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next questions. A few coming through now. Thanks, everyone. So the next question is asking, my partner previously had CBT for BDD on the NHS, which was largely ineffective. But after this webinar, it seems that the treatment he received was not as high quality as it maybe could have been. If someone wants to re-engage with treatment, would you recommend they start from scratch and do the psychoeducation and formulation sessions again, even though they have already have a good understanding of what BDD is and how it developed for them?
Yes, oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening with. Can you hear me?
I can hear you again now. Sorry, you were kind of breaking up a little bit there.
Oh, okay. So I think often I say when I started working with people that even if you have had some of that work before, I think it can be a really helpful to process to start from the beginning. It may be that you can go through some of that session content a bit quicker, but particularly the kind of understand the formulation sessions and things. I think it's really important for your therapist to also understand that and hear that directly from you, rather than sort of going straight in. So it might be that you do those things a bit quicker, and you can kind of this person can communicate about kind of what they already know, and so it might not need as many sessions focused on that. But I think there is something important about the therapist understanding and hearing it from the person about their experience and what that's like. And an important part of any therapy is building a relationship, and I think that part of the work can be really important too.
Thank you, Sarah. The next question is, what does live practice with therapist every session look like?
So I guess it looks like every session saying, right, what's the exposure task that we're going to do today? So we might look back at the hierarchy of BDD kind of safety behaviors. What is it we want to work on today? Is it we want to work on how much you're checking the mirror? Is it that we want to work on being able to talk to someone in a shop or going out without your hat? And then we'll plan that together, like what's a manageable task for us to try today, and then we go out and do it together. So often in my sessions I'll be kind of out and about. I'm based in Camberwell, so we're often out and about to different shops, or going to certain places where we know might trigger worries. Or sometimes we are staying in the session, is it about, okay, I'm gonna remove a certain bit of makeup, or yeah, so it's about planning a task that you're going to do in the session together.
Brilliant, thank you. Are you happy to do one more? We've got 1 minute. Let's call this the last one. Someone's asked, I work as a lived experience person with the local NHS. I've tried to raise awareness of BDD and specialised CBT, but they don't seem to be interested in BDD. They say there isn't enough numbers. How can I get the importance and suffering of BDD across to them?
Oh gosh, I feel like this is a real kind of battle that we have as well, is people trying to is helping people to kind of see how important it is. And I think one thing we've noticed is that it's actually at the point of people not always even identifying that someone might be struggling with BDD, let alone once that has been identified, and then noticing, and then kind of seeing the value of more specialist treatments. So I think BDD Foundation do amazing work at trying to raise awareness, and yeah, we're often trying to do work as well with local teams to kind of help them even recognize that there lots of people that they are seeing may be struggling with BDD, because often people might be struggling with low mood or anxiety, and that seems like more of the presenting kind of difficulty, when actually sort of underneath what's driving that is concerns about appearance. So yeah, I'm afraid I don't have any easy answers to that, but I think it's all about awareness raising.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, we face similar struggles as well in that kind of understanding and severity. We'll finish there, so I'm mindful of time, but if you did have a question that we didn't manage to get to, you can always email us as well. You can contact our helpline on support@bddfoundation.org. Yeah, just to say a huge thank you to Sarah. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. As I said, so much really fantastic information and guidance and advice in there. So thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for joining as well.
Thanks so much for joining. Yeah, and really helpful questions. So thank you, and apologies again for my technological problems.
Oh no, it wasn't you.